Chapter 8. I returned to the backyard with the tomato patch and the little girl of the eyes. She was not there. Neither were the tomatoes. Even the smallest green ones were gone, but arrows were there. They were painted on pieces of paper, and the papers were pierced by twigs, and the twigs were poked into the ground. I followed the arrows. They led to a far corner of the garden. The last arrow pointed down. I dug with my fingers. I came to something. I pulled it from the dirt and brushed it off. It was the size of a walnut, and it was wrapped in thin gold foil. I peeled off the foil. It was a piece of chocolate-covered candy. I broke it open. It was cherry. Red juice spilled onto the ground. I ate it. I licked my fingers. It was no hazelnut buttercream, but it was close. When I looked up, the little girl was on the step. "Did you like it?" she said. "Yes," I said, "but my favorites are buttercreams with hazelnuts." "I planted it in the spring," she said. "I planted a potato seed. It was supposed to be a potato, but nobody picked it when it was time to dig potatoes. Everybody missed it." She threw her arms out and shrugged to show that everybody missed it. So it became candy. That's what happens when a potato stays in the ground too long. Did you know that? "No," I said. "My name is Misha Palusky. I'm a gypsy from the land of Russia." I held out my yellow stone. My father gave this to me before I was kidnapped, and I told her all about myself and my family. She listened with her big eyes and her chin cupped in her hand. When I finished, she said, "It's not nice to steal. What are you looking at?" "Your shoes," I said. I loved to look at them. They were black and as shiny as her eyes. She held out her leg, turned her ankle this way and that. She held her foot in front of my face. "Look," she said. "See yourself." I looked. There I was, as clearly as in the barbershop mirror. I looked and looked, and then she was laughing. I was so intent on looking at myself that I hadn't noticed she was slowly lowering her foot. Now it rested on the step, and I was on my hands and knees, still looking. We both laughed. Then I said, "Are you a Jew?" She made her mouth like a fish and drew her breath. She put her finger on her lips and shook her head. She cupped her hands about my ear and whispered into it, "Yes, but I'm not supposed to tell anyone." I said, "Does your father scrub the sidewalk with his beard?" She frowned. "My father doesn't have a beard." "Do you boil babies?" "Of course not," she said. "What a stupid question." "I'm a stupid boy," I said. She cocked her head and stared at me. "How old are you?" "I don't know. Yuri had not told me that." "I'm 6, she said, "but I'm 7 tomorrow. I'm having a birthday party. Do you want to come?" I said, "Yes." She jumped up from the steps. She came and stood in front of me. She came very close until we were touching. "Stand straight," she said. I stood straight. I was looking at the back of her house to the brown curls on the top of her head. Her hand appeared atop her head, mashing down the curls, moving forward until it touched the tip of my nose. She backed away. "I come to your nose," she said. "You must be—" She stared at me, thinking. Her finger pulled down her lower lip, showing her bottom teeth, one missing. 8. She ran to the back door. She turned and pointed to me, and in a tiny birdie voice, "Don't forget, party tomorrow." She went inside. When I came the next day, she was standing on the step with her hands on her hips, glaring. Beneath the black velvety wrap peeked a pink dress that came to her knees. A red bow perched on her head like a little hat. She bent towards me, and I saw the red bow reflected in her shiny black shoes. "You're late." "What's late?" I said. "The party was supposed to start, but I told them it couldn't begin until you were here. 2 of my friends already left." With an angry grunt, she pulled me up the steps and into the house. She called out, "He's here!" Footsteps from all directions, some running, some walking, were in a room with a large table. On the table was food. There was glass bowls of cookies and candies, but I could not take my eyes off the cake in the middle. I had never seen such a beautiful cake. It was rectangular in shape, and it was a garden of frosting. There were frosted flowers of blue and yellow and green, and there was a little red frosting house with the blue frosting smoke coming out of the chimney. And there was even frosting animals that looked somewhat like a dog that could have been a cat. Across the middle of the cake, in yellow frosting, something was written. There were grown-ups around the table and 3 other little girls in bright dresses who were giggling and staring at me. And then one of the women began to plant white candles in the cake. One candle went right through the red house, and then a man was leaning over with a lit match. He put the match to each candle until all the candles were burning. I was shocked. They were going to burn down the cake. There wasn't a moment to spare. I blew out the candles, grabbed the cake, and ran from the house. Snow flurries swirling in my face. When I told Yuri what happened, he laughed so hard he fell on his bed. I liked it. I liked it when Yuri laughed. His red hair seemed to brighten. He told me about the birthday cake and candles, and I laughed also. My running had caused the beautiful cake to crack like a bombed sidewalk. Looks like we'll just have to eat it all ourselves, said Yuri. Before we did, Yuri read the writing across the cracks. He told me it said, Happy birthday, Janina. I scooped at the writing with my finger and ate that first. The next day, I stole the best cake I could find from a bakery. I waited until dark and took it to Janina's house. I set it on the back step. It took the candles from my pocket and planted them in the cake. I lit them with a match. I knocked on the door and ran. I wandered the city the rest of the day. I did not head for home until after dark. Along the way, I heard voices. I turned a corner. Fires burned in the night. My first thought, someone is having an amazing birthday party, but they were not candles. They were torches. Men were holding them in front of the bakery where I had stolen that cake that day. Strudels and torches danced in the firelight behind the glass. Someone painted a big yellow star on the window. A man came out of the side door. He was in stocking feet and held a coat about himself. At first, no one saw him. He said, Hey, what are you doing? The men with torches and paintbrushes turned to him. They were glad to see him. They came to him. They took his coat from him. One of them held his arms behind while another one painted his face with the yellow paint and made the star. The painter took great care to paint all the man's beard. Then they took his clothes off. The man kicked and screamed. Someone put a torch near his face and he was still. In the torchlight, his eyes were fiery like the window of the bakery. The painters painted the rest of him, white and yellow from head to toe. They backed away and held the torches to better see him. The painted man looked like a very sad clown. The men with torches and brushes howled with laughter. One of the painters reached and paddled the rump of the painted man, setting off a new round of howls. Then someone snapped, Go, go! And the painted man slumped into his house. It was then that I noticed flocks of torches up and down the street. Glass shattered. I turned another corner. It was everywhere. Torches and laughter and shattering glass and painters painting windows. I heard a horse coming. Greta, I thought, but it was not a speckled mare. Someone was riding the horse, but it was not in the usual way. He was tied to the horse, stomach down and backward. His bearded chin bobbed on the rump of the horse, and his face went in and out of the horse's tail. I thought, I'm glad I'm not a Jew. As I walked home, I looked at the windows above the shops. They were where the people lived. All was dark and silent. Men in the street threw stones and broke windows, but still no faces appeared, no lights went on. Early the next morning, I dragged Yuri out to see. People were still painting on the shop windows, but this time the painters were the bearded people, the shop owners themselves. I asked Yuri, what does it say? It says Jew. Don't they already know they're Jews? They want everybody to know? Why? So nobody will come to their shops and buy from them. I thought a minute. Yuri, will you have to paint Jew on the window of the barber shop? No. But you're a Jew. In the first place, they don't even know I'm here. In the second place, who ever heard of a red-haired Jew? In the first place, they don't even know I'm here. In the second place, who ever heard of a red-haired Jew? I thought some more. Well, what about me? Will I have to paint gypsy? No. Good, I said. But really, I wouldn't have minded so much painting gypsy on the window. I even thought I might like having myself painted yellow and white from head to toe, especially if they let me keep my clothes on. What I really feared was being strapped to a horse backward with my face bouncing in and out of the horse's tail. This time I said it out loud. I'm glad I'm not a Jew. Yuri said, Don't be too glad.